education enthusiasts. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the difference between top-down and bottom-up when it comes to public education. So people often ask what the differences are between traditional public schools and public charter schools. And there are a fair number of differences. One of the differences is that most traditional public schools use a top-down structure, and most public charter schools use a bottom-up structure. So let's take a look at these fundamentally different ways of administering public education. And just for a reminder, charter schools are public schools. They're publicly funded. They're open to everyone in the same way that traditional public schools are. Okay, so let's start with the top-down. So in a top-down model, decisions are made by administrators who don't have a lot of contact with students. And then these decisions are mandated to everyone else. So for example, a couple of years ago, there was a change that was decided at the district level in Lincoln Public Schools regarding the way that middle schools would handle electives. So we here at School Choice Nebraska heard from some of the teachers at these middle schools. They had some serious and practical concerns about these changes. Now, these teachers are the ones who spend their days with the students, and a lot of them had been there a long time, had a lot invested in their jobs and the kids that they teach. They're the ones who interact with the students on a daily basis, but their concerns went unheeded because the administrators at district headquarters had spoken. So there are some obvious disadvantages there with top-down. There is a big disconnect. Now, a lot of public school districts are very large. They have tens of thousands of students, and it's just not practical to think that the administrators can have hands-on experience with all the kids. That's just not going to happen. But in that sort of education structure, that's just how it goes. Another example, this is also from a couple of years ago in Lincoln Public Schools. The school board approved a $50 million proposal to acquire Chromebooks for all the 3rd to the 12th graders over the next several of years, and I believe this has all happened by this point. So at the time that the $50 million were approved by the board, they still hadn't figured out things like how they were going to be used, how the textbooks were going to be delivered, and things like that. One school board member said, "This is the stuff of legacy," following the approval of the technology implementation plan. So in a top-down model, though, you have to wonder, whose legacy is it? And how will this top-down technology plan improve educational outcomes of LPS students? We're far enough into this now, we probably can look and see. But some of these are big risks when you're talking about tens of thousands of students, and we're going to do the same thing for all of the students, and we don't really have all the feedback from the teachers. You can see how things can fall through the cracks pretty easily. What works great at one school may not work great at another school, or even classroom to classroom. So those are some problems with the top-down model. Another problem with top-down educational models is that they don't leave a lot of room for true innovation, because the people who are in a position to innovate are not given that much freedom. So top-down models are also susceptible to corruption because there's so much concentrated power. So there are massive contracts that go to large school districts, whether that's for Common Core textbooks or building projects or Chromebooks or software. These kinds of contracts, unfortunately, lead to cronyism, and outside motives can encroach, and true educational goals can get lost in this grappling for public funds. Spending other people's money is easy and fun, right? So those are some of the problems with top-down approaches in education. All right, so now let's talk about this other idea, the bottom-up approach. All right, so public charter schools are experiencing some great success with the bottom-up approach to education. So instead of legacy decisions and district mandates, these schools are doing something different. They're trusting their teachers and counting on them to make important decisions for the students. Now, this makes a lot of sense. The teachers know the students better than anybody else. So here's one example. There's a charter school in Colorado called Denver School of Science and Technology. And they found that the bottom-up approach works much better if the goal is to help students achieve academically. All right, so we're going to listen to a little of an interview with Jake Furman. He's the Senior Manager of Educational Technology at Denver School of Science and Technology. And he says that teachers are the experts in their classrooms. They know what their students need. They know their students' perceptions and opinions. And with this valuable information, they decide how to integrate technology into their classrooms. Then, after they have this valuable information, they send it back up to instructional leaders and ultimately to the ed tech leaders who can help make the teacher's classroom needs come to fruition. So let's take a listen to this.
The center of what we do is we want to transform urban public education and deliver a high quality education to all of our students. We have very integrated schools with a very diverse student body. We believe that if we put students in a diverse community, then their sort of development and learning is a lot richer than otherwise. We're focused very much on college readiness. 100% of our graduates have been accepted to four-year colleges and universities. Which is something we pride ourselves on as sort of the end goal. I think there's a lot of things that weave into that model, but I think instructional technology and how we leverage data in the classroom and innovative instruction is one piece of that. But it fits in this greater sort of commitment to core values. Core to our belief is that we focus on great instruction first. We want to offer professional development on what great instruction is and infuse technology into that. With the exception of some technical skills, we very rarely have this is a tech or an ed tech session. Okay. This is an instructional session.
I love it.
And infused in that will be how to leverage tools in order to achieve these goals, like differentiation, multimodal learning, et cetera. We don't want to separate the technology from the instruction too much, so they're very interwoven. We have so much available to us and so much has changed, and we're the truth is that we're not capitalizing on it in the way that we should. Teachers are the experts at their classroom and what their students need and what they hear from their students. And so the way that manifests itself often is teachers deeply understanding the needs of their students or the perceptions of their students or the opinions of their students, and then that open line of communication back up to instructional leaders and ultimately ed tech leaders within the organization is, I think, really important. We consider ourselves an open source model. Multiple times a month we have what's called a CMO tour. That's basically a group of people that open to sign up on our website, and you can come in and get sort of a full deep dive. What that does is it sort of gives a sampling into, you get to talk with the instructional leaders of the network, you get to talk to a school leader, you get to talk to the ed tech leaders, IT leaders even at times, and it gives you enough of a dabbling where you can make connections after that. I think from a technology perspective, it can get hard sometimes sharing tools that this works in our environment, does it work in yours, but at least having those conversations and letting people come in and see is huge.
All right, so we can see that in this school, the value is that teachers are able to decide what works well for their class. And then it sounds like they get together and say, this is working for us. Here are the tools we're using, and then they share that information. If it works great for another teacher, that's great. But maybe it doesn't. These teachers are teaching different subjects. They have their own teaching styles. They have experiences with what they're comfortable with. Mandating that all of the teachers have to use the same programs, it's not going to work very well. I've heard from teachers who don't really like whatever has come from the top because it just doesn't work well with their teaching style or with the class that they're teaching or with the curriculum or with the textbooks that they prefer to use. And so you can see how having a bottom-up focus is wonderful for teachers and for their students. So after listening to that, it's no wonder that Denver School of Science and Technology was named one of the top workplaces in Denver for several years in a row. So, you know, public school teachers, would you like that kind of an atmosphere? Working at a public school where the administration depends on your feedback and values your professional expertise. And what about the benefits to the students? Did you catch that bit in the video about 100% of DSST's graduates getting accepted to four-year universities? This is an urban, low-income school. It can happen anywhere that is willing to put student achievement before other priorities. So, in the quest to provide Nebraska students with a world-class education, we need to figure out how to cultivate a bottom-up approach to education. Because when teachers have the freedom and authority to teach the individuals in their classes in ways that reach them best, success follows. So one of the ways that we can do that to get a more bottom-up approach to education is to get public charter school legislation through the legislature. Another great thing about the bottom-up approach is that instead of administrators deciding we need a career academy, we want a career academy in our district, let's do that. For example, LPS built a career academy at great expense to the taxpayers, and it is still years away from being full because the demand for it just wasn't there. You know, I think there was some demand for it. There wasn't demand for as large a school. Some of the programs were getting very little interest because there just wasn't demand for it. When you have a bottom-up approach to education, the things that are wanted and needed in the community will be there. If there is a demand for an aviation charter school, if there are those out there, then that will come. If there's, you know, some teachers or educators or even parents have special expertise in a certain area, they could apply for a charter to open a school for that. Some of these schools are remarkable. There's a school in Los Angeles that is dance-based. They have really impressive test scores, which might be surprising, but you had somebody who's very passionate about dance and incorporated it into all of their curriculum, and it's wonderful, especially for kids who can't sit still at school or who love performing. It meets a need. I like to think about, you know, what kinds of innovative schools might we have when we have charter schools in Nebraska. It will be fun to watch. So that is a little about the top-down versus bottom-up approach to education. Let's do what we can to veer away from the top-down and more towards the bottom-up so that kids' needs are better met and so that teachers' strengths are better utilized. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave us a comment at www.schoolchoicenebraska.org. We'd love to hear from you, to hear your ideas, or to get you more involved in our organization. Thank you very much. Have a great day.